the regional level. But we chose commerce and took a little bit of harder because of the Rehoboth. We saw a little bit of a cohesion between commerce and Rehoboth. So one of the issues that we've addressed is the lack of access to resources with regards to this region or the area we chose. So initially, in terms of access to the basic necessities that individuals need, things like education, water, sanitation, and housing. So in terms of further elaboration, I'll give it to my partner.
All right, so we chose the hybrid model. So since we're doing it on a regional level for commerce as well as HIDA, the challenges which are being faced is basically political will and literacy. So the fact that the barriers are actually that there's access to resources for the community, that is the main problem that is there. So access to resources are so broad that one can actually, if I have to elaborate on that. But, for example, if we're going to talk about education and employment, these two go hand in hand, which is actually a fundamental human right under the UDHR, as well as going according to the SDG guidelines from the United Nations. So, let's say, for example, what we can do is, a lot of times we talk about funding. We need funds to send an SMS or send an MS or WhatsApp and so forth. Sometimes we do have the funds and we actually do have the means to actually do it without even having funds. And that is something that CSOs also need to start considering. For example, designing a simple flyer on your smartphone, it's possible. If you can do invitations and all of that kinds of stuff, everything can be done on your mobile phone in today's world. So the outreach would be, for example, the use of social media, print media, and other technological means. This is because we're moving into a digital age, AI, artificial intelligence. So let's push forward towards that. Now let's say, for example, we talk about education. We don't know you too long. Education, what type of education? We always talk about we want to start agriculture. Does Namibia's climate allow us to really start farming? That is a big question that we need to ask. Or can we, for example, you've got a lot of youth who actually grew up. Just an example, youth that started out, they grew up, they all wanted to be mechanics. So basically throughout life, they grew up, they got older, they just backyard mechanics, they don't really have education. So now we need to think of how we're going to absorb people with various qualifications into the labor market. And then, for example, like you mentioned earlier, Mr. Heiko, it's all about passion. So what are we going to do about it? Let's try and find the potential as well as the passion for those young people and then absorb them into the labor market. Instead of always just criticizing, you need your 20 points for grade 12, you need to have your grade 10 with certain points, whereas you're not really exploiting the talent and the potential of that youth, which is actually something that a lot of people here in this room, I know that your parents have also said many things about your behavior and performances and so forth. That is just a fact. So, for example, education, what can we do? We can't do agriculture, let's look for something else. Pharmaceuticals, can we produce pharmaceutical products which can actually be graded, for example, to the FDA standards, the European standards and so forth. These are things that a lot of people are not really looking into it. Transportation, there's markets here in Namibia, but these are not being exploited and looked into.
Yes, just to confirm on what my partners were speaking, since I'm actually from Hardtap. We were discussing the housing and the electricity problems, especially when it comes to the newest areas we find in the Rehoboth. If I have to specify, like parts from in Block G and also parts from Block E. So then we came to the one conclusion, which will be the solution to get more equipped when it comes to the education. And thereby agreeing with my partner suggested just to We were looking at the idea also to get sponsors for the unemployment, because to round it off, we would actually come to the problem of the unemployment.
So everything is basically interlinked. So, you can't just bang on education and then, but then the stakeholders, for example, there are so many different stakeholders. I mean, just to list them, we know which stakeholders we need to go to within the Namibian government, approach those various stakeholders, and then share those ideas, and then start doing something with it. Instead of just doing the typical Namibian thing of kapana and fruits along the streets, and that typical African BS. So yeah. And also this is inclusive, meaning that it's all ages. All ages, all sexual orientations, gender identities, and races, meaning that we need to also start getting Caucasian people, Asian people onto these types of platforms as well, and also start integrating them into our societies, and stop with that spirit of familiarity and narrow-mindedness which is common amongst human beings. Thank you.
And a round of applause to the group.